Okay, so good afternoon or good morning wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Michael, and this is Beck.
Hi, it's lovely to see those people who are in the room. And if you are joining us virtually, we're going to be having a conversation with you, but also having some conversations with the people in the background as well. If you're kind of seeing us doing a little bit of multitasking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're so excited to be with you today. I'm like ridiculously excited. You might see me jumping around and dancing because this has been a long time coming, and I'm just really, really enthused and looking forward to getting this content to you all. Should we wait a couple more minutes for more people to come in, or should we begin?
Let's roll.
Okay.
I say let's roll.
Okay.
I'm ready to stop procrastinating.
Okay.
Do you like what I did there?
I love that.
We'll be talking about procrastinating today.
I love that. So today's session is all about better focus and higher output. And the focus of today's session is going to be on procrastination. So we're going to be talking about why we procrastinate, what the science reveals about why we procrastinate, and what we can do about procrastination. Some information about us, but you saw that. And Beck, you're up.
All right. I love being thrown into the firing line. So I really love talking about this topic because I was a master procrastinator. So for a really, really long time, I actually wanted to get my own business off the ground. And I didn't. And I have to ask myself a lot, why didn't I get this started earlier? So I'm very, very pleased to say that in August last year, I left my full-time job and I went out on my own as an entrepreneur. In the last 12 months, I've actually made more money as an entrepreneur than I was making in my job, which for me is like a self-high-five moment. But again, calls me to raise that question around, why did I put this off for such a long time? And the reasons for me were complex. So there were a lot of self-belief things that were holding me back from taking that leap. It was that belief that I won't be able to be successful. I don't have what it takes. I'm safer doing what I'm doing now, and I'm not willing to take that risk and jump out into the unsafe unknown. So there are lots of reasons that we do procrastinate. Some of them are self-beliefs. So what I would like for you to do, if you are watching us virtually, please grab yourself a pen and a paper or have your laptop in hand to write down. What I want you to do is to brainstorm in 60 seconds as many reasons as you can for why you put things off. They could be external reasons, the external pressures in life. They could be those internal reasons that you come up with, the little brain traps and the tricks that we come up to. But let's not delay. I'm going to give you 60 seconds to jot down as many as you can wherever you are, and your time starts now. Why do you procrastinate? Go for it. If anyone in the room, once we unmute, once again, share some of those things that you've written down, that would be awesome. So coming back in 10 seconds. See if you get down another couple. What are those reasons you procrastinate? Timing your. And then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hands down. The first reflection and the first brain hack that I would like to offer you today in terms of how to be more effective and more productive is giving yourself a time frame. Because in giving you 60 seconds, it's like, go, just do it. You're not going to sit there and go, oh yeah, I'll come up with a list in a minute. You're just getting into it and you're doing it. So one of the things to actually build in a little bit of internal motivation is to build in some of that internal positive stress about the task, giving yourself a timeline and building something in that keeps you accountable to it. So I was the one keeping you accountable to that task today, counting you down, bringing you back in. But how can you set that up for yourself? That's a good question to leave you with. But I want to come back to you. So we've got a few people in the room with us today. If you're joining in at home, if you can't hear them, I will then repeat some of the responses that we get. But what were some of those things that you wrote down, everybody? What are some of the reasons you procrastinate? Anything you're willing to share? Go for it.
I don't know how to start.
Ah, the question or the belief that I don't know how to start. Fantastic. Thank you. What else was out there?
Distraction.
Distractions. Yeah. What kind of things in terms of distractions come to mind?
Social media.
Oh, social media. My gosh, the scrolling through the feed constantly, right? So those distractions can be external to us. They can also be internal to us as well. But it's a great one. Anybody else want to take the microphone? Yes.
I have a lot of things to do, and there's always a more interesting thing to do than the thing that I'm putting back.
Yes. So the response there was, I've got a lot to do, and there are things here that are more interesting to do than the things that are necessary to do. So you've got those competing priorities in terms of what's more interesting. So it raises a lot of questions around, what are these factors around procrastination? Did you have another one at the back there? I can see, I'm just looking at the person who has the microphone at the moment. I'm trying to drop them in here. What else came up?
Lack of clarity.
Yeah. Lack of clarity. So true. When we are confused, it's kind of like we're trying to work our way through a fog. We can't really see the path ahead. So on that, I'd like to handball over to Michael, because what Michael's going to talk to us a little bit around is giving us some clarity around the reasons that we procrastinate and the reasons that we start to drift off, because oftentimes we're unable to maintain our focus and we're unable to gain that focus and that clarity on what we need to do. So what does the science tell us about procrastination?
Yes. Okay, so the science reveals that actually what procrastination really is about avoidance, right? So we're not really procrastinating so much as we are avoiding our emotions. And instead of leaning into that uncertainty, instead of leaning into the fear, we're avoiding it. So what are we avoiding? We're avoiding feelings of overwhelm, low self-image, self-doubt, or fear. And this image here is literally us running away from our feelings. So what do we do about that? There's this quick tool that I created, and I want you all on your paper to create or write down self in a circle, and then write task, just like you see it here. And then make a line in the middle. Then I want you to think about one particular thing that you're procrastinating on. Can you think of one particular thing that you're procrastinating on? And I want you to write that down in the task section. So what is it that you're procrastinating on? Is it your business? Is it, cleaning your house? I do that a lot. What are you procrastinating on? Then the next thing I want you to ask under yourself is, what do I need? What skills or resources do I need to complete this task? And then take some time to answer that.
So while you are thinking about that and while you're putting down some reflections, I might share an example, actually. So I shared the big example around the story of putting off starting a business for maybe 15 years. One of those smaller examples for me is I've got some stuff that I need to sell on Gumtree. It's pieces of furniture that I do not need in my house. It's actually getting in the way of us doing other things, and I keep putting it off. And it's impeding other things that I want to do in my day, but I still haven't been able to get around to doing it. So there's that self versus the task bit. So in delineating these two different things, the task itself of taking some photos of something, putting it on Gumtree and selling it off, that's one thing. But the thing around the self is that right now I feel really overwhelmed. I feel quite busy with a lot of other things. And again, it comes back to that point of how necessary is this? I'm just putting it at the bottom of my priority scale because day to day I'm feeling like other things are more important. But actually, if I got rid of that furniture, it would clear my headspace in order to be able to do other things. So there are those factors around myself and how I'm feeling and what I'm thinking that you can write down in that self bubble, as opposed to what will it take to do that task? For me, if I break it down, first step is just to take a photo of it. And maybe that first step will help me to then start to roll along. So for yourself, start to write down those two different pieces around the more subjective experience of what you're procrastinating versus the more objective experience. And while we give you a few minutes to think about it, if you're joining us virtually, you might kind of roam around, and if you have any questions around your particular example, happy to chat through it with you as well.
Yes. So what examples do you all have? Do you have any that come to mind?
Running.
Running.
Yeah.
You're procrastinating on running.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else?
Writing my thesis.
Writing your thesis, yeah. That took me forever. Yeah. Vatsal, what are you procrastinating on?
Just about work.
Work.
Yep.
Okay. Dustin,
Doing my tax return.
doing your tax return.
It's due tomorrow.
All right.
Anyone else? What are you procrastinating on? Ellen, what are you procrastinating on?
Promoting my services online.
Marketing yourself. Okay. What are you procrastinating on?
Like some small jobs that have no deadlines. For example, I need to retouch some photos for for my website, but it's not important. It's not affect so much. So have no deadline for that.
Yeah. Yeah. When there's no deadline. Okay. Now, did you answer the question, what skills and resources do you need to complete that task? Did anyone answer that question? Want to go first?
For me, it's data wrangling and working with other programming languages, the interface between them. Yeah, so learning how to do that.
Learning how to code, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In other languages.
So there's like
Okay.
a skill and a knowledge gap there. Kind of like, oh, I'm not sure because I don't have the knowledge to fill that gap yet.
Yeah.
Great. Can I come back to the running as another example? Because you probably have the skills and the knowledge of how to run. So that's not the gap for you. Did you identify what that resource is or what's creating the gap for you?
Yes. So that would be time and self-discipline.
Yeah. It's great to hear those different reasons coming up, right?
Yes.
Sometimes it's a lack of something, I don't have the information. Sometimes it's that sense of I've got too little time, time as a resource, or internal motivation as a resource.
Beautiful. Vatsal, what skills or resources do you need to complete your task?
I think I need a set action plan first of all, with time limits, clear set of objectives, and probably team as well, and then we'll start doing stuff.
Okay, so maybe to be more organized or?
Yep.
Okay. Justin, what about you?
I just need to get the spending time and focus and sit down and concentrate, get rid of distractions.
Okay. Now, on the task section, if you could write, what are the first steps to completing this task? What are the first steps to completing this task? You might have just answered that, but if you could write it down on your paper, that would be great. What are the first steps to completing this task? And then right under that, if you could write, is there anything getting in the way? Is there anything getting in the way?
It's a really good question. Because we can identify our first steps. But if there are barriers to those first steps, it just keeps putting it off and putting it off and putting it off even more, right? Yeah. Which can sometimes be a bit circular. So if you think, I need to go for a run, but I'm lacking the self-discipline, well, my first step will be to put this in my diary, maybe. Maybe it's a time thing, like I'm just going to actually schedule some time for myself to do it and clear the other things out of my diary. But if that time comes around and you still don't feel like you have the discipline to do it, actually, what else do I need in here? If that barrier is still in existence, then we start to ask the question, well, what can I do to get over that barrier? Maybe it's social accountability. So I will meet you, my friend, at 7 a.m. for a run. And instead of leaning on your own self-discipline, you're actually using that social accountability then to go, I'm going to do this at the time that I said I would. So it's kind of like building in some of that positive stress. Yeah. So if you start writing down your own barriers, and then you start to identify, oh, yeah, that's a bit of a circular loop that I can get myself into. Start to ask yourself the question around what will help you to overcome that hurdle as well. What will get around that barrier for you? Yeah.
Any examples? Is there anything in a way? Did anyone come up with something that we can talk about? Yes.
I guess for me, my first step is to read about what other people did and try to practice it by myself to understand how it's working and even see what's not working and what alternative I could use.
Great.
Okay.
I love that because this came from an example where information and knowledge was the gap. And you've not just gone, I'm going to go do some research or I'll read a book about it, but you're actually going to ask about other people's experiences. So it's not just going to one source of knowledge, but you're talking about, oh, I might ask a few people what their experiences are and start to open myself up to what other people have learnt. That's awesome. Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
Daniel, what's in the way of you running?
I always tell myself it's too cold to run in the morning, and even though I wake up really early and I actually do it at the time, the idea of not having enough time to just do nothing kind of scares me as well.
Yeah.
All those internal stories. So for you, it might be that kind of sense of, it's too cold, the time factor, and so how can you shift the internal story that you've got around it to then help you to move forward? Yeah, there's some, very great tangible, external, objective things that we're talking about, and some of those internal narratives as well. Yeah, thank you for sharing those.
Ellen, what did you come up with? Anything in the way?
No, my first step would be just to set up my Facebook ads account.
Yep.
Great.
And that's it. And there's nothing on the way. There's nothing on my way.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Vatsal, did you come up with anything?
I'm not sure, but I think the first step would be identifying the problem. Okay. The problem I'm trying to solve.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And you haven't done that yet.
I think I have, but it's still lacking a bit of clarity. I
Okay.
have a few different problems, but I need to bring them together, I think.
Okay. Cool. So finding the problem that you're solving is okay. Yes.
I think we need to set a deadline, like a schedule for your task.
So set a deadline for yourself. Yeah, even though no one else is imposing a deadline, impose a deadline on yourself.
Nice.
Yes, powerful.
Nice.
Now, another question to ask yourself is, what would completing this task, how would completing this task benefit me or my business? How would completing this task benefit myself or my business? So Ellen, how would completing the task of promoting your business, how would it benefit you or your business?
I would get new clients.
You would get new clients. Okay. Tell me about those new clients. How would you feel about having those new clients?
Excited, but I think what is procrastinating me is because I'm kind of afraid of the workload if I'll be able to handle it.
Oh, that's great. If you didn't hear that online, it's that excitement around wanting to get the new clients, but also that next barrier of going, my workload, what will my workload look like after that?
Yeah.
Which going through this process, I hope that that's giving you that sense of clarity around, actually maybe that's one of the barriers that I've got. So do I actually need to look at my capacity and how I could actually schedule my week to cope with that workload before I start to do the Facebook promotion, because that end goal is really important, right?
Yeah. And really, you know, is that so relevant at the stage that you're at now, or will you be able to hire people or like outsource some of the activities later? But that's a whole nother conversation. I love it. Okay, so how would that benefit you, Daniel?
It will make me more fit and of feeling fresher in the morning.
So you feel fresher, you feel fitter.
It will improve my mood.
It would improve your mood, okay.
And set me up to have a good, productive day.
Set you up to have a productive day, yeah. And do those things matter to you? Like, what does it mean for you to have those things accomplished?
Recently been feeling things like mood, and yeah, it's a really big part of whether or not you have a good day. And so I think not only will being fit allow me to live longer and make more money, but also having
Live longer and make more money.
yeah,
Yes, and that's motivation right there.
but
Yeah.
also having
Yeah.
being happy allows you to do that with,
Being happy, okay.
with, with
Seems like you got to start running because, I mean, seriously, one activity to do all that, I mean, sign me up. So how would completing the task of your business, how would that benefit you or your business?
Just move on to the next task, basically. So that would be, I'll have a feeling of accomplishment.
A feeling of accomplishment, okay,
And then just move on to the next one.
okay.
Sounds like momentum. Give you that momentum to keep going, right? Yeah, great.
Great.
So we've got 3 minutes before we need to wrap up today. So I hope that process for anybody following along virtually as well, in terms of those fantastic questions that you've structured, has given you some food for thought. We can see and feel that food of thought coming out in the room, which is really fantastic. But a couple of things that we wanted to wrap up on today. So one of the things that I wanted to call to mind for you is how can you attach these things that you want to achieve to your value system? So in going into business for myself, I was really fortunate to get a fantastic business coach who asked me these very basic questions around, great, you can earn more money. Why? Why does that matter to you? What would you want to do with the money that you earn? I was really confronted. I was like, oh, well, what it boils down to me for is that then I'd be able to look after my family more. And then I got really teary and I went, oh my gosh, what it means for me is I can look after my dad. What I would really, really love to be able to do is to be able to afford to buy a house for my dad because he's not in a very good financial position himself. If I can do that and set him up for the rest of his life, wow, it still gives me goosebumps right now. So it comes back to a value system. Why do you want to do what you're doing? And if you can attach each of those little tasks back to an important why for you. If I wake up and I go, I need to do some Facebook ads today, that's because I want to get that house for my dad. If I wake up in the morning and I go, I need to make those difficult phone calls today, I can do it and I'm motivated because I want to do it for my dad. So it's about values-driven ambition. How can you know your why, get clear on why it's important to you? How can you link your why back to that task? And what do you do to put in place to remind you of what that why is? So for me, I have a photograph of my dad on my fridge. For another one of my friends, it's really important for his education, for his career, that he gets the diploma that he's working on. So he has an empty picture frame hanging in his hallway where he's going to put his diploma certificate when he gets it. So what are those reminders that you can put in place each and every day to remind you of your why? Yeah, that's over to you, buddy.
I love that, Beck. Thank you so much for that. That's almost made me cry. One last question to ask yourself as it relates to self in relation to the task is all those reasons that all the things that you discovered of how completing the task would benefit you or your business. The next question to ask yourself is it now worth taking the first step, right? So after you discover the benefits, I'll be fitter, I'll be happier, I'll have a better mood. My business will be more successful. I'll have clients if I promoted my business. The next question is then, is it worth it? Is it now worth taking the first step? And what you'll find is that your brain will say yes, hell yes, and then you'll actually stop procrastinating. If you want to learn more about some other methods, because we have so many more that we would like to share, Go to 4weekstofocus.online, or the acronym 4W2F.online, and we can give you, register your interest for the course that we'll be offering. The course is structured where the first week we're going to give you clarity. We discovered the importance of clarity today. The second week we're going to tell you about the RA method. The RA method is a really great method that teaches you how to induce the dopamine reward system. So dopamine is, of course, the part of your brain, a chemical in your brain that gets you energy towards your goals. So we'll teach you how to trigger that automatically. Optimization is about the neuroscience of neuroplasticity and also mindfulness. We'll teach you how to set your day up for success. And then the fourth week is all about walking away with a plan to focus. So after the first 3 weeks, at the end of the 4 weeks, you're going to actually know what to do to stay on track and to stay focused on your goals. And that's it.
So thank you so much for your participation today. Everybody who's been in the room, everybody who's joined us virtually as well. We hope that there are some tangible things you can take away from the session, and we'd love to follow up with you and kind of progress you through that journey of getting you what you want and getting you clear on why you're doing it as well. So all the best for the rest of your day, everybody, from both of us. Thank you again.